Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome here to the Flatout Racing Network's coverage of race number 8, season 63 of the Rolling Thunder Gaming Talladega Challenge Series. This is the regular season finale. This is the last opportunity. This is where we put the playoff grid together to begin the road towards finding out who is going to be this season's champion. So far this season, we have seen a total of 6 drivers go to victory lane. 1 driver, a multi-time winner. Those drivers right now, at least 5 of them, are locked into the postseason. They cannot mathematically fall out of the top 20 in the point standings, we think. There's still a lot of cards on the table. 1 driver comes in right on the 20th in standings cut line. A former winner needs to keep himself above that cut line. And there is a plethora of drivers. I think I last counted about 7, 8, 9 drivers that are separated from 9th down to 19th. 17 points between them, some above the 12th in the standings cut line and some below the 12th in the standings cut line. We've got a lot of different areas to look in the point standings. Going to have a lot of different areas to look in the field here tonight, as 41 drivers will take part in this regular season finale. I mean, Michael, we talk about this a lot of times when we are in these type of scenarios, whether it be the regular season finale, an elimination race, or of course when the championship's on the line in the finale. A lot of times it's kind of the wait and see, wait until everything is official. We can only, for the most part, with so many points out there on the table, we can just kind of make some guesses here and there.
Yeah, and it's going to be interesting to see who can finish where and do what and gain points, because as you talk about, Seth, it's getting that much closer to crunch time. So it's going to be fun to see how things ramp up here for us up here and for the audience out there, as to see who's going to finish where and do what.
Last couple of weeks, we have seen these drivers realizing that we are getting down to the nitty-gritty. We are getting down to the end of this regular season where they're running out of time to be able to make their way into the playoffs. And we've talked to drivers in recent weeks, and they said we can feel the sense of urgency and the aggression level on the racetrack. It is ramping up. I think tonight it's going to reach an all-time high with 41 drivers taking the green flag tonight. We've had quite a number of big ones last 3 or 4 weeks. 42. Are there 42 actually taking the green?
Yeah, I'm on the track.
Well, okay, all right. All right, smart Alec.
Well, I was on the track.
You were on the track, so now it's back down to 41, which means my original statement was correct. But, you know, we've had the dreaded big one. We've had massive wrecks these last couple of races, and we may end up seeing one here tonight. Could be a game changer in regards to who ends up making it into the playoffs. Now, I mentioned about the fact that there are 5 drivers that are pretty much locked in. There's a very good chance they're going to stay up in the top 20 in points. But Ken Roberts, former winner on the season, won very early on here during the regular season. He has dropped to 19th in points. He's technically tied with Kelly Causey for 19th. They're kind of the 20th in standings drivers, as you got 21st place Bob Dixon right behind them by 5 points. Ken starts on the pole here tonight, so the randomizer playing out in his favor in terms of track position. Again, his goal tonight, just stay above the top 20 in the points. His win will lock him into a playoff position. He'll share that front row with Glenn Harris. Glenn coming into this race out, I believe he is the last driver mathematically that could win his way into the postseason, as he is 30th in overall points. Doug Woolley's going to make up row number 2 with Mike Mangialardi. The defending champion, Chuck McClure. We know he's going to be going playoff racing. He's locked in on points. He'll be sharing row number 3 with Jeffrey Elliott. Ulysses Sandoval in row number 4 alongside of Jessica Shelton, who is also locked into the postseason on points. And your top 10 will be... Well, we'll get to that in a minute. We'll get to that. I know what you're referring to. We'll get to that storyline in a minute. Keith Bynum, Bernie Mobbs, they're going to make up row number 5, completing your top 10. Jeff Crivello and Cy Jones, they're going to be in row 6. Bob Seminara, former winner on the season, shares row 7 with Kelly Causey. Another former winner in Josh...
Huh? Bob Seminara? More like Bob Salmonella. I'm just kidding.
Or Biscuits. Josh Metallic and Jim Glau back in row 8. Dante Ricky in the field here tonight. He'll be with Ron Haglin in row 9. Your top 20 complete with Terry Bombard and Greg Palmer. Back in row 11.
We're gonna have to be watching Terry Bombard. I saw his ping before I got on the track, and oh my gosh.
And Terry is only 5 points above the 12th in the standings cut line, tied for ninth. Back in row 11, Tim Knopfsker alongside of Doug Hulick. In row 12, I lost my spot. There it is. Graham McDonald alongside of Rodney Sullins, who's just above the cut line. Mark Paglia, the only two-time winner in the field, shares row 13 with Richard Martin. Bobby Farrell, Jeremy Jeffries back in row 14. Denny Carroll and Randy Waugh
Luigi.
back in the completion of the top 30. Joe DeSpirito, Greg Lovell back in row 16. Row 17, Mike Mangialardi and Tom Dixon. Row 18, Jason Scheck, Javier Negron. Then Billy Elliser, Bob Dixon, Brian Ross, and John Godfrey, your 41-car field. I'm going to take a breath as we get ready to go green here tonight in this regular season finale.
You forgot one row, Seth, the most important row.
The
Me
row
and you.
that didn't start. I think that might be the first time that you and I have actually, in the random qualifying drop, been put in the same row together.
You lied.
Did I?
There's only 39 cars that took the green flag.
Well, there were 41 that were listed as scored in terms of the qualifying results.
Well, the 789, I believe, is the server car, and the 29 of Mike Mangialardi did not start.
That would have been the 43rd car, and then you eliminate me and you. Oh, then it would have been 40. Never mind. I can't math.
Liar.
Point
Third
stands.
lane already forming.
Still a lot of points. Still a lot of points on the table.
Third lane already forming. Jeremy Jeffries going up to the outside has pushed from Jessica Shelton, and I can't tell who that is behind her.
I don't know who you're seeing. That's Jeffrey Elliott to me, not Jeremy Jeffries.
You know what? I can't talk. You can't math, I can't
You
talk.
got the Jeffrey part right, but the rest was wrong.
Well, you know what? You got the 4 right, but everything else was wrong too.
You know, you're absolutely correct. As they're 3 wide fanned out there. Ooh, that almost looked like they might have been peaking 4 wide around that 7th, 8th position. Top 4, single file. So the scenario coming into tonight, we know for certain, provided they stay in the top 20 in the points, that 5 drivers, Brian Schilling, Bob Seminara, Josh Metallic, Donnie Garrett, and Mark Paglia, they're locked into the playoffs via wins. 3 drivers are locked in on points tonight. They mathematically cannot fall out of the top 12. They would be Jeremy Jeffries, the current points leader, Chuck McClure, and Jessica Shelton. And, of course, Ken Roberts, provided he stays up in the top 20 in the points, he is locked in with his previous win on the season. Terry Bombard, Randy Waugh,
Luigi.
They're tied for 9th. They are 5 points above the 12th in the standings cut line. Rodney Sullins is 11th in points. He is 3 points to the good. And then Tim Knopfsker is right now the cut line driver, 12th in the standings. And then listen to how close this is below him, Michael. 7 drivers in total. Brian Rawson, -2. Joe DeSpirito, -5. Cy Jones, Grant Wesley, who we know is not in the field tonight and may miss the remainder of the season, but they were -7. Brian Lovell, -8. Bernie Mobbs, -11. And Kelly Causey, -12. I mean, that is so easy to make up in this type of a race here tonight. We could see as many as 4 drivers fall below the cut line and as many as 4 drivers move above the cut line at the conclusion of tonight's race.
The
conclusion.
And we have a new race leader. Ulysses Sandoval took it on the outside, drops down immediately.
So that's the perfect segue with Ulysses taking the race lead, because there are a number of drivers that can win their way into the playoffs here tonight. Bob Dixon, he is currently 5 points below the 20th in the standings cut line. Billy Elliser is 12 back. I believe 20 points back is our race leader, Ulysses Sandoval. 24 back, Greg Lovell and Greg Palmer. Jeff Cravello, he is a total of 27 points out. 28 points out, Doug Woolley. 33 points back is Bobby Farrell.
Bobby Farrell.
Yeah. 33 back, Bobby Farrell. 39 back, Mike Mangialardi. And Glenn Harris is the last driver that mathematically could win his way and gain enough points to get into the top 20 in the standings. He is a total, if my calculations are correct, of 41 points out of the 20th position in standings. So The moral to this story is pretty much anybody inside the top 30 in the standings, provided they have the correct scenario, could still make it into the postseason.
Absolutely. Look at this side-by-side racing set. Remember the one time we watched them all go 3 wide, 3 by 3 by 3?
I don't think that was here though, was it? Was it here at BSR or was it at Talladega?
It might have been here.
It might have. Yeah, I'm trying to remember.
I don't
Maybe it
know.
was
Those
2 weeks
tracks
ago.
tend to blend together sometimes.
Yeah. That's Keith Bynum up there on the top in the 63. Now, Keith Bynum is 42nd in the point standings, but that doesn't mean that drivers that may not necessarily be able to race their way into a playoff spot still don't want to get that checkered flag. Jeffrey Elliott right behind him is 38th in the standings. They're going to race just as aggressively here tonight, regardless of what's on the line for the playoff drivers or potential playoff drivers. So,
Seth, I don't know if you mentioned it or not, but what about the bracket series?
yes, so that is one thing that we've been remiss in bringing up during these broadcasts, but we actually, this week, are in the finals on the winner's side of the bracket series. We good?
Yeah, I think so. Sorry, I saw these top two on the bottom line kind of, like, I don't think it might have been a little bit of a bad hit or almost a bumper grab there. That was scary for just a second.
Still side by side, they're deadlocked at the front. But this week, Jessica Schulten and Donnie Garrett have been able to advance their way into the finals on the winner's side of the bracket, and 2 drivers are not in the field here tonight. They are both on vacation. Robert Breedlove and the aforementioned Donnie Garrett, who is a former winner on the season, 34 points to the good, above 20th in the standings. So he's hoping that with his provisional points, he will not fall out of a playoff position. With Garrett not in the field tonight, Schulten will advance to the winner's side of the bracket championship and take on whoever ends up being the champion on the loser's side of the bracket.
Here it comes, Seth. We talked about it, 3 by 3 by 3.
And that is Jessica Schulten up there in the white and pink thriftbooks.com machine.
It just says Young on it for me.
Well,
sorry, what does it say? Yuns? Oh, Vos, whatever the VONS. But this 3 by 3 is helping out that inside lane in Ulysses Sandoval. Or as I like to call him, Sandoval.
Sandoval. That just would be the Daytona Beach, the original Daytona Beach. Whoa, a lot of movement right there. Off of turn number 2. We are 3 wide. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 rows deep.
I'm glad that we're commentating this race and not like iRacing's, Cup 90 cars or the Aero 88 cars, with them getting sideways and Jeff Green scaring us half to death every time.
Having a heart attack every time they exited out of a corner.
Going into a corner, too.
More stability in these cars here, it certainly seems. I talked about that bracket challenge. Let's review who is in the battle on the loser side of the bracket here tonight. 4 matchups. Josh Metallic is going to advance because he was going to face off against Robert Breedlove. Brian Schilling is taking on Terry Bombard. Billy Ellis are facing off against Jeff Crivello and Brian Lovell, who I believe is not in the field here tonight. Let me double check on that. No, he is not. So Bob Seminara, by virtue of the no-show, will advance as well. Of course, the eventual winner on the loser side of the bracket will go off to face Jessica Schulten. That, I believe, is going to be in 3 weeks' time, if I'm not mistaken. See, contact! Keith Bynum up into the wall. Keith was pinching Chuck McClure. The 2 made contact, and Bynum into the wall, kept it straight. Everybody fans out. Oh, nope, caution is out, actually.
Bobby Farrell wrecked in the back, so did Rodney Sullins.
I wonder if it was in reaction
to
what happened up at the front.
I believe it was.
Oh, Rodney Sullins in the 38. Don't know how much damage is on that race car, but remember, he came into this race just barely above the cut line. 3 points to the good. Bobby Farrell was in the must-win category. John Godfrey there in the 7-11, but I believe he started shotgun on the field. Don't know if he was involved in this or not, as Ulysses Sandoval via the frozen field He brings us back to the caution, and we'll pick up the pace car on the back straightaway. Let's go back and take a look at what happened. We saw there live the initial contact between Chuck McClure and Keith Bynum, which we'll go back and look at again, but let's see if we can figure out what happens further back here. A lot of checkup, and it looks like there Rodney was checking up for Graham McDonald. Mark Paglia gets into the back of him. Doesn't look like very much contact there for the Wrangler Chevrolet, so he should be okay. A little contact between himself and Bobby Farrell. Loses track position, though. I believe he was 24th crossing the line, and now he's back in 39th place. There were a couple of other drivers that got some bits and pieces of this as well. See if we can pinpoint who they are. Denny Carroll in the 41, he was able to save it. And then looked like John Godfrey, Jeremy Jeffries, and Randy Waugh
Luigi.
were all able to make it down there to the apron. So, in
The
essence,
apron,
we really...
Luigi.
Huh?
I said apron, Luigi.
That doesn't make any sense.
Neither does you. Do you
Me-
make sense?
Are you talking about me, or are you talking about Ulysses?
Talk about you.
Oh, okay. Here's a look at this
Do you make
contact I
sense?
was talking about here through the tri-oval.
Just change the subject so quickly.
Yeah, it's hard to tell there if... I mean, Keith was definitely pinching the 17 down, and the cars do push up off the exit of the tri-oval that are down on that inside line, so it's kind of that old adage, you pinch, you pay, and Bynum was lucky that that caution came out because he could have dropped all the way back to the rear of this field. He ended up crossing the line, I think, in 16th place or something like that. Don't know if he got right side damage from getting the wall or not, but really only a two-car incident. Bringing out this yellow flag, Rodney Sullins and Bobby Farrell, the only two that actually went around. So you know what that means? That means the big one is still looming.
Possibly.
Bob Seminara staying out here, getting a lap-led bonus point. Of course, as well, at the conclusion of tonight, we will have ourselves a regular season champion, and we've been talking about this during the course of this regular season, that whoever ends up taking the title of regular season championship, they carry 15 bonus points, an equation of 3 race victories into the first round of the playoffs. Right now, Jeremy Jeffries has the points lead. Only 11 points in hand over Brian Schilling, 16 back to Chuck McClure. Bob Seminara is 20 back, and Jessica Shelton is 35 points back. Those are the only 5 drivers coming in tonight that mathematically have a chance of heading into the postseason as the regular season champion and garnering those playoff points. But Seminara trying to cut the 20-point deficit that he has down by at least 1 point here with the bonus point of a lap led. Looks like Jason Scheck coming down pit road as well. Terry Bombard stays out. You like this call, Michael? Because Terry coming into this one only 5 points to the good above that 12th in the standings cut line. You need every point you can possibly get.
Yeah, it's a tough call to make, but you know, every point matters, and you need to get them one way or another.
Terry was 19th off the grid, and he will get that bonus point for a lap led right there. We'll probably see him on pit road next time by. Taking a look at our YouTube chat. Got Jeffrey Elliott, Denny Carroll, Ulysses Sandoval popping in before they got on the racetrack in preparation for tonight's event. Al Sullins there as well. Right, 38, you watched the best, the Black 3 for years, get her done. Well, little bump in the road right now for Rodney, but he should be able to make his way back up to the front. And we talked about the Nature Boy, Donnie Garrett, on vacation here today, hoping that the 30-point advantage he has over 20th in the standings could be enough to keep him in playoff contention. Give us a good old woo in the YouTube chat there. Hope you're enjoying your vacation down there in Cancun, Donnie, and can't wait to see you back on the racetrack next week, hopefully in a playoff capacity. Should get the lights out on the pace car this next time by. And we're going to have to see here what the strategy call is going to be for the one car of Jeremy Jeffries, because I believe Jeremy, who was at the rear of the field, we saw him be able to avoid that wreck over in turn one. I think he was of the thought process that he was also going to stay out, get a bonus point for a lap led, trying to extend his points lead in the overall standings. But now he and Terry are the only two that haven't pit under this caution period. Does Jeremy bite the bullet, stay out, be at nearly a 9-10 lap difference to everybody else in order to be able to get that bonus point? It looks like the answer is going to be no. The strategy did not work for him. He's going to come to pit lane. Ooh, and Ulysses Sandoval, Chuck McClure coming in as well. They would have had good starting track position, but they want that extra little bit of fuel. So already the fuel strategy game's coming into play, and we're not even, well, we're about almost a quarter of the way there now.
And you never know what's going to happen.
Got to prepare for all scenarios. We've seen it all here this season. We've seen shootouts, 2-lap shootouts, 1-lap shootouts. We've seen drivers running out of fuel crossing the start-finish line. We've seen long green flag runs. We've seen survival fests with big ones. I mean, we've had a little bit of everything here this season, and so have the drivers. So to your point, yeah, with not knowing what's around the corner, plan for what type of a race you think we're going to have here for the remainder of tonight's regular season finale. Ken Roberts started on the pole, led the first 4 laps, and he will re-inherit the lead. He'll be alongside of Jeffrey Elliott for this restart. Kelly Causey will line up in third alongside of Glenn Harris, Jim Glaude, and Richard Martin. They'll be in row 3. Row 4 will be Jeff Crivello and Joe DeSpirito, and then Mike Mangialardi and Ron Hagelin going to be your top 10. Shout out to Ron Hagelin picking up the Barebones Racing Series victory at Meadowlands this past Monday night. I believe I read the graphic correctly. It was his first career win in that series, so congratulations to him on a job well done. So far this season, we've not had any first-time winners, but we have had a number of drivers snap what was then long winless streaks. Bob Seminara, Josh Metallic, Donnie Garrett, Ken Roberts, Mark Paglia, all able to do just that. Some of them extending about 2 seasons, other of them extending about half of a year in terms of the length of the winless streak.
Some even full years, Seth.
Oh, yeah. Wasn't there one that was like, who was it? Was it Seminara? I'm trying to remember. It was either Seminara or Roberts. It was like a year and a half.
One of them. I don't remember
I
either.
think it went back to 2022. I could be wrong. All right, getting ready to go back green. Lap 15 will be complete. Lap 16 on the board, giving us a total of 51 laps to go. Ken Roberts ready to get up through the gears, get us back underway. We saw them 3 wide, 6-7 rows deep on the initial start. Let's see how antsy they're going to get here to get back to that formation. Tom Dixon moving out of line there. Also see a third line further back. Chuck McClure, Doug Hewlick, Jeremy Jeffries back there trying to work their way forward. Almost dead even between Roberts and Elliott through 3 and 4. Woo! 4 wide back there. Looks like Tom Dixon's trying to get out of Dodge and fall to the rear of the field. Momentum in that outside line. Glenn Harris is going to push Jeffrey Elliott across the line. P1. First lap led tonight for the 56. Trying to figure out what they want to do mid-pack. A couple of drivers shaded like they were going to go up to that third line, then duck to the middle. Oh, Jeremy Jeffries in the wall. And that bright pink Vaveling machine back there. Jeffrey Elliott clear on the 55 of Ken Roberts as he'll move to the bottom. I just scanned over our running order, and I believe that another driver, big name driver, did not make the start. The 4 of Brian Schilling. I don't see him on the running order. Do you see him on the
I,
track?
I don't think so. I don't remember seeing the 4 car.
I don't either. I believe he was in here earlier, and in the TeamSpeak that is, and I don't know what exactly has happened with him. Now, Brian's already locked into the playoffs via his win. He's also locked in via points, even if he didn't have the victory. He was 71 points to the good above the cut line coming into this one, but he was the closest as well to Jeremy Jeffries for the regular season championship. As we got a car in the grass back there, I think that was John Godfrey. Cy Jones, and he made some contact. He saves it. Does Godfrey, brings it back up on the racing surface, but you saw the Wiley Coty tribute pace car back there stationary. We stay green. Number of drivers below the cut line that were playoff contenders last season. One of them running in that 5th position, the 24, multi-time former champion Joe DeSpirito. 14th in points coming into tonight, 5 points below the cut line. Trying to point his way in. Brian Rawson, who was a multi-time winner last season, got his first career win, his first career playoff appearance, and his first appearance in the Final Four. Competed for the championship in the finale. He is the first driver out, -2, 13th in points. And you see Kelly Causey, that bright yellow 00 in the 3rd position. He is 19th in the standings coming to this one, -12. He's been in the playoffs numerous times, has pointed and won his way into the postseason in the past. Tonight, I believe he has to, well, no, he could do either. He could win or point his way in. Mathematically, he is close enough behind the 12th in the standings cut line that he could make it in via points. And right now having a good run inside of the top 5. Whatever happened to Jeremy Jeffries there at the rear of the field has not affected him. He is still up here at the tail end of this lead group. However, same cannot be said for John Godfrey, obviously, with his instant through the tri-oval, but also Denny Carroll in the 41. Now, I'm not exactly 100% certain what happened to him, but I thought I saw on that last restart, the 41 got up into the wall crossing the start-finish line. I don't know if maybe he missed a shift, may have blown a gear and got a tap from behind, but something happened to him on that restart, and Denny Carroll...
Either way, it didn't bring out a yellow flag either.
It didn't. He kept it straight. He got up into the wall, but he kept it straight. And Denny Carroll, we've seen the last couple of weeks, he's been up at the front. He's been in the conversation for a victory, just usually gets caught up in some late race incident. He is the first driver that could not advance his way into the playoffs. 31st in points, total of 54 points below the cut line of 20th in the standings. And his night has gotten off to a rough start as well, as we are now at a third of the way home. Josh Metallic now trying to make a move here on the inside line. And of course, I talked about the 5 drivers, Michael, that come into this race pretty much knowing that their wins will probably lock them into playoff positions. You look at a Bob Seminara, a Josh Metallic, a Mark Paglia. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, I believe this is the track that is going to decide the championship. 2 races in that final round, but Burnt Screwdrivers Raceway is the final race of the season. Are they going to school here tonight, kind of treating this like the, oh, well, hang on, I'll ask you that question in a minute because we're wrecking. We had the caution out, and then we just wrecked under yellow. Graham McDonald is around, up in front of traffic. Bernie Mobbs wrecked, and we're still wrecking on the back straightaway. This was not the reason for the yellow. This was after the yellow had been taken. Novsker in the 088, the cut line driver, 12th in the standings.
Well, the caution happened with Ulysses Sandoval.
We'll go back and take a look at what happened with him, but then you just saw there the fallout of the follow-up wreck. And Jeffrey Elliott will bring us back to the caution. Let's go back and take a look at the initial incident first with Ulysses, one of our must-win drivers tonight. Oh man, he took a big hit too, because I see quite a bit of damage on the front end of that race car. Here's a look going into turn 1. It's Greg Lovell behind him, and oh wow! I don't know if that was a little case of bumper grab there. I think the car in front of him was side-deciding. I mean, Ulysses' car just shot to the right very quickly, so I think that some bumper grab, some warp might have come into play, or as our old friend Scott Rankin used to call it, gap whack.
Wonder whatever happened to him.
He's actually, he's doing, like, broadcasting, interviewing stuff now.
Oh, nice.
With, Australian, I don't know if it's cars or if it's, sim. You saw right there. Definitely some checkup and some bumper grab coming into play. And Sandoval, the violence of that turn to the right, you could see when he left the scene of the accident, there was a lot of damage on the front end of that car, so I'm pretty certain he's going to be potentially off the pace. Here's a look at what happened afterwards. The caution was already out. And watch Graham McDonald in the 33, the Samuel Adams machine in the middle. He's going to get into the left rear quarter panel of Bernie Mobbs, back up the track into Billy Elliser, Tim Knopfsker. Doug Woolley goes off to the right side of the screen there. Keith Bynum enters in from the right side and avoids hitting the outside wall. I think a couple of cars were actually down towards the inside wall. Paglia and Dante Ricci. I'm not sure if they hit it or not. I don't know if this was a case of that the caution had come out. It's frozen field, so everybody's supposed to bail out of the throttle and coast, keeping the positions they were in at the time. And I wonder if it was a case of maybe one lifting a little bit more than the cars behind them. I don't know. It's hard to tell.
It's very possible.
So Dante Ricci down there and Mark Paglia. Neither one did hit the inside wall. Bernie Mobbs took a harmless spin for him. He gets it back going. But I still don't think that quite qualifies as the big one. I think it's still looming.
We know we're going to see it.
Second caution of the night. Greg Lovell going to stay out, get himself a bonus point for an extra lap led, as we're a third of the way through this evening's festivities here in the regular season finale. Well, 39 drivers took the green to start this race. 39 drivers are still running at this point on the lead lap. But will that remain the same as we continue on towards tonight's checkered flag and the putting together of the Season 63 playoff grid? We'll find out. We're going to step aside for an FRN race break. You won't miss anything, and then we will continue our coverage here when we get ready to go back green. closing in on halfway in tonight's regular season finale. Playoff
We had some
spots
fun under
on the
caution.
line. Yeah, you saw it there during our FRN race break. Little contact between Mike Mangialardi and Greg Palmer sent the 029 barrel rolling. Little contact with Jeff Carvello as well. Mangialardi's actually going to restart up here in 6th, so we'll see if that barrel roll is going to affect him speed-wise or not. Jury's out on that, as well as some of the contact we saw of the follow-up wreck after the Ulysses Sandoval incident over in turns 1 and 2, the wreck on the back straightaway. We'll see if there's going to be drivers off the pace or not. As Ken Roberts, so far tonight, after starting on the pole, he's been up here inside of the top 5 pretty much the entire evening. He's led 6 laps so far, going to lead his 7th when we go back green. Jeffrey Elliott's led the most. He's to his outside. Jeffrey's led 8 circuits out in front. Keith Bynum has led 5 laps. Ulysses Sandoval 3, and then 1 lap apiece so far for Terry Bombard, Bob Seminara, Jessica Shelton, and Greg Lovell. Lovell and Shelton leading those laps under this most recent caution period. Now remember, folks, tonight the playoffs are locked. Next week, the playoffs begin. Thursday night, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're back here on FRN to begin the postseason for these Talladega Challenge Series playoff drivers, as well as the other drivers that may not make it into the playoffs. They still want to end out the season with a checkered flag. Fingers crossed my internet is going to be good. And hopefully these drivers, well, I can't say hopefully, we know every single week they put on a good show for everybody watching on YouTube. Green flag back in the air. Roberts and Elliott, once again, your front row going into turn number 1. Caution's out again.
It didn't take very long.
No, it didn't. Restart incident there. I thought I heard squealing tires, but I wasn't 100% certain. Must have been something towards the rear of the field. As Ken Roberts and the rest of the leaders going to boogie their way around this racetrack to be able to get back and catch up to the pace car. Could be a who's who back here of who might have had the problem. Graham McDonald, Chuck McClure, Greg Lovell all back here. Take a look and see if we can figure out who it was.
Hopefully it wasn't a phantom caution.
Oh, it was not. It involved last season's champion, Chuck McClure. Take a look and see here. Jessica Shelton moves up to the outside. Oh, it looked like Chuck McClure wanted to go up there with her. Novsker was to the outside, and then Chuck tried to come back down, and Greg Lovell was already to his inside. They make contact, and Graham McDonald gets collected up as well. Take another look at it here. Watch the bright red 880 of Greg Lovell as Chuck McClure looks to commit himself to moving up to the outside line. Greg's going to take advantage, go to the inside line, and when Chuck comes back down, Greg's already to his left rear quarter panel. Tom Dixon got clipped a little bit there, and I believe that was Jeremy Jeffries that also made his way through. Jeremy's had to dodge a couple of incidents so far here tonight. He's got that bonus point for the lap led a couple of cautions ago, but because of that, he has not had primary starting track position on restarts and has had to avoid a couple of moments there over in the 1 and 2 turns. As we cut back to live, we may have missed it, but Joe DeSpirito was running in 4th, and he actually dove onto pit lane, giving up a spot inside of the top 5. I think a couple of other drivers also came down there with him. Rodney Sullins, I believe the 38 was all on pit road. The 10 of Terry Bombard hit pit road. These were drivers that were all up inside of the top 10, top 15. Bob Seminara, I think, also was on the pit lane. So, interesting call there, because you look at when we might potentially be going back green. maybe lap 33, and that's going to give us a total of 33 laps to go. We know the fuel window for these drivers is a median of 19 to 20 laps, so those drivers are feeling that one more stop to the finish, might as well make the pit stop now, might be able to take on less fuel on the final pit stop if we end up finishing this race under green flag. Al Sullivan's in our chat saying 38, get up there and follow the pretty number 8 and go to the front. It's actually interesting because Glenn Harris and Rodney Sullivans, of course, both running Dale Sr. paint schemes, and they actually, usually on Monday nights, will communicate with each other as to which paint scheme are you running this Thursday night, so that way I make sure I'm not running a similar paint scheme. Both of them here tonight running the Dale Senior cars, the Good Wrench colors, the black number 8, and then the yellow Wrangler, the yellow and blue number 38. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I believe that Rodney Sullivan's Black Rifle Coffee car is actually a Dale Senior throwback as well, so they actually correlate to make sure that they don't run similar looking senior tribute paint schemes on Thursday nights.
Just about halfway home.
Well, Ken Roberts, we had last week, we had complete domination by Tim Nofsker. Led the most laps in that race. I think he led 40 plus laps in that one. Did not go on to pick up that checkered flag to lock himself into the playoffs. Here tonight, though, most laps that have been led, 9 laps right now by Ken Roberts. Jeffrey Elliott has led 8. We've yet to have a driver go into the double digits in laps led. That will change when Ken comes back around this time by, but Ken had pressure coming into tonight. He had to perform. He had to keep his car out of trouble. He was the cut line driver, 20th in the standings, which is the lowest you can be with a victory to be playoff eligible. All Ken had to do was keep himself in the top 20 in points, and I usually, when we're up here in the booth, we have the luxury of seeing the field, seeing the lineup, seeing who's running where, what their point situation is, so we can be able to easily kind of make the calculations and transfer that information to all the people watching. I asked the drivers, you got so much to think about out there, are you knowing what your scenario is to be able to advance into the playoffs? And we asked these questions as well when we're in the elimination races of the playoffs, and they say, yeah, we're keeping track, we know what the scenario is, and with everything they got to worry about, the strategy in terms of pit road, the strategy in terms of who they're going to work with, double wide, 3 wide, all the way through the field. I mean, they just add that extra layer into there of more distraction. I don't know how they do it. But Ken may have had a list compiled tonight of drivers that he just wants to finish ahead of to make sure he stays in the top 20 in points. Drivers that are in the immediate, just below him in the standings, like Bob Dixon, Billy Elliser, Ulysses Sandoval, and may feel that that's enough for him to be able to advance, but he'd like to join Mark Paglia as a multi-time winner on the season as well. Before Paglia got that win last week at Talladega, we were on a streak of 6 different finishers in the first 6 races. Paglia is the only driver right now that has gone to victory lane more than once here in season 63. Cy Jones, you see him going to be taking the lucky dog. I did not see the 7 lose a lap. By my last look, all 39 drivers were on the lead lap at the time, so I don't know if he had a connection problem where he fell out and came back in. But he will receive the free pass, and now all 39 drivers will be back on the lead lap, all still running despite the fact we've been under the caution 3 times tonight. I feel like it's a contradiction of terms, but so far tonight, the first 3 cautions have been relatively harmless wrecks. There's been a lot of spinning, there's been a lot of sliding, but really nothing that has looked like race-ending damage. Ulysses Sandoval had that hard hit into the outside wall. And then, of course, we saw the Mike Mangialardi flip over in turn 1 under caution. But other than that, we haven't really seen anybody take massive impacts that would put them at an aerodynamic or top speed disadvantage. But we're only halfway home. There's still quite a ways to go. A lot of opportunity for error. And a lot of opportunity here for this 2.66 mile superspeedway to completely shake up the potential playoff standings.
Absolutely. I am going to step aside real quick. Seth, I got to go to the commentator's room.
Okay. Pace car going to make the left-hand turn to pit road. Ken Roberts gets ready to put us back under green. Little quickie yellow here after a incident going into turn 1 on the restart. And it will be 34 laps remaining in this one, with Roberts, Elliott, Harris, Causey, and Mangialardi, your top 5. Roberts will move up to the middle line before they even get to the exit of turn 2, pick up Jeffrey Elliott. Glenn Harris now will lead the inside line with Mangialardi, Crivello, and Doug Hulick. Advantage down the back straightaway, middle groove. Causey will clear into third. Now here comes Richard Martin to the outside of Glenn Harris for fourth. Seen DMAR on a limited schedule here this season. Failed to qualify for a race a few weeks ago. Former champion of the series. First driver in quite a while. Whoa, contact there. Brian Rawson and Bobby Farrell for fifth. But Richard Martin, one of the few drivers to win the championship without winning a race. As now it looks like Brian Rawson and that entire middle line with that loss of momentum, they are going to start losing a ton of ground. Jeff Crivello is cleared into, I believe that would be 7th. Doug Kulick right behind him in 8th. How about Javier Negron in the 40 car? Started out back in the 36th position. First time we mentioned his name here tonight. Holding down a spot inside of the top 10, right in front of Joe DeSpirito. It looks like whatever problems Denny Carroll had a couple of cautions ago with that restart, looks like he's been able to remedy that. He's now up here just outside of the top 10 in the 11th position. Look at him at the back of the pack there. Slicing and dicing. 3 wide, a couple of areas. Couple of petty cars there, nose to tail. Richard Martin, the very familiar powder blue 43 STP, but right behind him, the petty blue 92 of Bobby Farrell. Bobby Farrell, one of those drivers that could win his way into the postseason here tonight. 28th in the standings. 33 points below the 20th in the standings cut line. But he is in a must-win situation to even have a ghost of a shot of advancing into the playoffs. Everything up here in this middle line all the way back to around, looks like the 18th, 19th position. Jessica Shelton trying to make something happen on the bottom. The 2 pink cars here for the October Breast Cancer Awareness Month. Shelton and Jeffries working together down there. Josh Metallic as well in the 39. Randy Waugh in the 21. Working to the inside of Terry Bombard. That would be for the 17th position right now. trying to make their way forward against this middle line that is quite a string of race cars. Brian Rawson will now move down to the bottom. That'll help add a little bit more momentum to this inside line. And if they can make forward progress, more and more drivers will start to see that, and they'll drop down as well. Also keep an eye on the top left of your screen there on our lap counter. We've seen different drivers play different strategies when it comes to pit road. We know they're going to have to make at least one more stop before the conclusion. The question is when. If drivers wanted to come to pit road the moment that the fuel window opens, we'll see them on pit road within the next 8 to 9 laps, around lap 46, 47. And I think I might have seen back there Chuck McClure throw in the clutch. I also saw him and Keith Bynum almost get together again. Those two have already traded some paint here tonight in the early stages of this race. So it could be a little rivalry brewing here, at least in this one. Jessica Shelton has now jumped up to the middle line. Jeremy Jeffries and Josh Metallic left to their lonesome on the bottom. They'll be hoping for some checkup in that middle groove, providing a gap for them to be able to tuck up into. And look at the fan out of the back of the pack again. Nice and orderly up here at the front, but at the back it is complete bedlam. Drivers dipping and diving on each other, changing lanes. Complete and utter bedlam. Looks like Ulysses Sandoval, his car might be up to speed. It's hard to tell if he might be holding these guys up or not. We know he's got some front end damage from his incident over in turn 1. But just trying to stay up here in this lead pack. Has to win to make his way into the playoffs though, and right now it just doesn't look like he's got the car to do it. Let's move back up to the front. Let's find some more of our drivers that are trying to point or win their way into the postseason. See if we can find the 31 of Bernie Mobs. Where is he at? There he is. Right now in 19th place. Bernie was 11 points below the cut line coming into this one. He is behind Tim Nofsker on the racetrack as well. Nofsker is in 12th. And Nofsker has to worry about a bunch of the drivers that are just below him in the standings if he is not up here at the front with a chance of winning this race. He could easily be knocked out. Drivers he has to worry about, one of them 2 cars ahead of him, Joe DeSpirito, who is 3 points behind him, or correction, 5 points behind him coming to this one. He also has to be worried about the 6, the Copenhagen machine of Brian Rawson, who right now is, I believe, 4 positions behind him on the racetrack and was only 2 points behind him in the standings.
Single file, I see.
Yes, indeed. We'll also keep an eye out for the progress of Cy Jones after getting the free pass. Cy had a shot of making it into the postseason here this year. He was 15th in points coming in tonight, 7 points below the cut line.
Seth, I'm not sure if you talked about him. I'm not sure if you talked about him while I was away in the commentators room, but let's talk about the guy in 4th place. Haven't seen him much in the last couple of weeks.
Yep, we did talk about Demar. Of course, as well, I mentioned is that the fact that the top 35 in points, if we end up having to have knockout Q, that they are locked into the field. Everybody else has to qualify their way in. There was 1 week that Richard Martin was outside of the top 35 in points and did not qualify in. So he showed up to race but was unable to partake. But nice to see him in the field here tonight. You just saw right there, that was last week's winner. And the only driver with multiple wins on the season, Mark Paglia, going a lap down. We know that Paglia got some damage from a previous incident. And again, with these Aero 88 cars, it can be very deceptive if they're going to be up to speed or not. Apparently, the damage sustained by the Quality Care Ford too much for him to be able to stay in the pack, and he has been put -1. We also have had the 022 of Jason Scheck come to pit road, and he is retired out of the race. So we were doing well of having all the cars that started this race running on the lead lap, and now we've got one that's a lap down and one that is DNF. Scheck will get credited for 39th here this evening. What do you think, Michael? We look here first back to around 12th, 13th, all single file. They just riding, waiting for that final pit stop?
It's very possible. You know, sometimes you just get into emotion. You're like, all right, let's calm down. We don't need another caution. So they're running single file now to try to avoid that from happening.
Billy Elliser on the inside there, trying to work his way up to the front. He's picked up Jeremy Jeffries and Josh Metallic. Jessica Shelton, Chuck McClure down there as well. Tim Knopfsker will join their ranks as he dips down from 12th place.
Well, Seth, if I knew you wouldn't die from it, I would hand you one of these Gatorades I got.
I appreciate the fact that you don't want me to die.
Yeah, Mr. Allergic to Electrolytes over here.
Yeah, that's me.
You have
And now
to get
all of
your
a sudden the
you have
middle
to get
line
your
has become the
electrolytes the
inside line.
old-fashioned way.
What's the old-fashioned way?
Just standing out in the sun.
Oh, I need to become a flower. Going through my photosynthesis.
Your photosynthesis.
Oh, look at this. Jeffrey Elliott
By
on the
himself,
pit
though.
road. I talked about the fact that some drivers might try and play the strategy of coming to pit road when the fuel window opened. Jeffrey Elliott attempting that. I believe he also tried this strategy last week, but we ended up seeing him not too long after retired out of the race. So we'll see if it pans out for him this time. You also saw Mike Mangialardi. We saw him have that little tumble under the, I think it was the second caution over in turn 1. That car is obviously off the pace, and he may end up going a lap down at some point. Do we see more drivers dive onto pit lane? Not as of yet. Whoa! Little sketchy back there around Greg Palmer, Bob Dixon. They almost had some contact off of turn 4. That's around the 26th position. We went back green on lap 33. So the furthest these drivers, for the most part, would be able to go before they absolutely have to make that final pit stop would be lap 54, which is still about 7 laps away. Whoa! Richard Martin, the 43, got down on the apron. Had to save it, and he may have been posting he was pitting, because here he comes to pit road along with Ken Roberts, Kelly Causey, Bobby Farrell, Brian Rawson, Glenn Harris, and Jim Glaude. So 7 drivers onto pit lane here on lap 47. Will that draw more onto pit lane, or will they run it long? Caution's out!
Well, that doesn't surprise me.
That's huge for those 7 that came to pit road.
80 is around, and so is the 22.
There's Greg Lovell.
I'm going to let you sort all this out.
Greg Palmer there in the 22 Bacardi machine. And this is massive for these drivers right here that came to pit road, because I believe they all got onto pit lane before the yellow flag flew. Actually, Jim Glaude might not have taken service. But these drivers all here should cycle up to the front. And I believe the caution came out just before Jeffrey Elliott got put a lap down, unless or hang on, let me check here. Were we at 15 to go? No, I don't think we were at 15 to go, so it would have still been frozen field. And I think Jeffrey Elliott was just ahead of the leaders before that caution came out. So he, I think, as well should cycle up to the front. We'll have to wait and see on that. Kelly Causey, Ken Roberts, they're all trying to figure out what they need to do if they have to pass the pace car or not. Or as we like to say, pace the pass car. Thank you, RJ Bishop, for that one. Let's
Pace
take a
the
look at
pass car.
see what happened to bring out this yellow.
But don't you have to pass the pacemaker?
Yes, yes, you do.
Pace the pass maker.
Well, I guess going into turn 1, it's bad luck to be a red race car. Take a look here.
Oh,
Greg
Seth, by the
Lovell,
way,
Bob Dixon. Ooh,
as you
Graham
look at
McDonald
that,
got loose in front of
as
him.
you look at that wreck, who did that possibly save? The
Saved Mike
person who came
Mangialardi.
down, the person who came down pit road right when the window opened.
Yeah. Well, I think it did. I want to go back and see here at the timing of this yellow. I want to look and see where the 56 was. He was ahead of the leaders from what I saw, and I don't know if we raced back or if it was frozen field. If it's frozen field, he should still be on the lead lap.
It's frozen, I would think.
So there's the caution. Where's
It's
Jeffrey?
frozen, I would think, because it's not 10 laps to go yet.
So there's Jeffrey right there. The field is still flying by him, so I guess they're racing back? No, they're keeping their positions. Alright, let's try and pinpoint the exact moment the yellow comes out. Was Jeffrey a lap down at the time the caution came out? Because, let's see. Because watch this. This was the camera angle we had coming off of turn number 2, and I believe right there, yeah, caution lights are on, and clearly the 56 is ahead of the 24. So if it is frozen field, the 56 would have been on the tail end of the lead lap at the time. So we'll wait and see if they get this scoring correct. Jeffrey Elliott should, by what it looks like, he should restart up inside of the top 10. Well, now they're showing the 24 of Joe DeSpirito out in front. I don't believe he came to pit road yet. I mean, I'm looking back there at the 00 of Kelly Causey. I think Kelly is going to end up being the leader. Tom Dixon actually stayed out, got himself a lap led, so well done to him. The Batmobile enjoying some time out in the race lead. And I'm looking to see those drivers that came to pit road. And they're showing that Joe DeSpirito made the same number of pit stops as they did. And yet DeSpirito is the race leader. I'm a little bit confused on how all this shook out. Let's go back, take a look. Let's try and see if we can dissect this.
Are you dissecting?
So, alright, so this one's odd. This is really odd because we saw the amount of time that it was taking there for Kelly Causey, Ken Roberts, and that group to go around the pace car. They had to go around the pace car because they were on the tail end of the lead lap. There you see them all coming around, and they crossed the line, but because they took so long to pass the pace car, Joe DeSpirito, actually coming off of pit lane under caution, crossed the start-finish line ahead of them. And by virtue of that, he was scored ahead of all of those drivers, and he is going to, more than likely, when Tom Dixon hits pit road, inherit the race lead. So, I don't know. That one's a weird one. By virtue of the timing of the yellow, Kelly Causey should be the race leader. Jeffrey Elliott should be on the tail end of the lead lap. I'm not sure how all this scoring was all officiated, but I don't think we exactly have the correct lineup that we should here for this upcoming restart, at
This is
least
what
based
they're.
off the time that the caution came out.
Yeah, well, this is what they're gonna go with, Seth. And remember, me and you had a run in with this during one of our league races
Yep.
just the other day. The same scenario, pretty much.
The yellow flying in the middle green flag pit stops, it can definitely make the waters a bit murky. And it has done so here on this one. Jeffrey Elliott on the tail end of the lead lap. He's right now being scored in the tail end lead lap, unless it's telling him to stay behind the pace car. That might be the only reason why he hasn't gone around to get his lap. Mark Paglia is going to get the free pass, so he'll be back in the lead lap as well. Our 38 remaining drivers will all be on the lead lap. Lights should go out this time, and indeed they will. I don't think this is exactly what the running order should have looked like, but this is the way that it's going to be when we go back green. Joe DeSpirito is going to be the leader. Bob Seminara in second. Rodney Sullins will be in third. Fourth place will be Kelly Causey. Fifth place, Ken Roberts. Glenn Harrison sixth. Bobby Farrell seventh. Terry Bombard eighth. Jeremy Jeffries is now up to ninth, and Brian Rawson will restart in 10th. Richard Martin will be 11th. Ulysses Sandoval 12th. 13th, Jeff Crivello. Javier Negron in 14th. Doug Kulik 15th. 16th, Jessica Shelton. 17th, Josh Metallic. 18th place, Tim Nofsker. 19th, Randy Waugh.
Luigi.
Been a while since you got to say that, huh? Chuck McClure will complete the top 20. We'll give you a full field rundown. We got time. They're on the back straightaway. So 21st will be Denny Carroll. 22nd, Ron Hagelin. 23rd, Billy Elliser. 24th, Doug Woolley. Dante Ricky. You haven't really seen him up at the front yet tonight, so hold out for that. He's 25th on this restart. John Godfrey in 26th. Graham McDonald 27th. Bernie Mobbs, Bob Dixon, Greg Palmer. Your top 30. Jim Gloud back in 31st. 32nd, Cy Jones. Greg Lovell is 33rd. Mike Mangialardi 34th. Tom Dixon 35th. Keith Bynum in 36th. And then Jeffrey Elliott, Mark Paglia, you saw go around there, get their laps back. We'll restart 37th and 38th. Ken Roberts, he's led the most laps so far tonight. He'll more than likely get the bonus point for most laps led at this point as well. He's led 26 laps so far this evening. Jeffrey Elliott, the next closest, has led 8. 3 laps led so far for Joe DeSpirito and Ulysses Sandoval. 5 laps led for Keith Bynum. 2 for Tom Dixon. And then 1 lap led apiece for Bob Seminara, Terry Bombard, Jessica Shelton, and Greg Lovell.
Race back to the line from now on.
And fuel will no longer be a concern. This restart's going to be with 14 laps to go.
Well,
so it's
you know what
all
else
going to take place on the racetrack as somebody
Ulysses.
did not get going. Well, did Ulysses not get going, or did the 6 not get going, and Sandoval jumped up to the third lane in reaction?
I believe he jumped up to the third lane in reaction. But Seth, you know what else is not a factor anymore? Your face.
Oh. Okay. Brave of you to assume my face was even in the conversation to be a factor. One would have to assume a missed shift for the 6 of Brian Rawson. That sends Ulysses Sandoval back. Third line trying to form. Tim Nofsker, Chuck McClure, Ron Hagelin up there. Will they get more numbers in that outside line?
Didn't really work out well for Ulysses to jump up that high.
I think he jumped up there to avoid running to the back of the 6 who was having a problem, and he paid the price for it. As Joe DeSpirito leads Rodney Sullins, both of these drivers trying to at least point their way into the playoffs. Sullins above the cut line, DeSpirito just below. A win is an automatic lock-in, but a top 5 would more than likely point both these drivers into the postseason.
4 wide.
Oh, man. And Metallic's going to back out. Metallic backed out of that wisely, allowed Javier Negron down to the inside line. They'll make it 3 wide going into 3. Something's more amiss on that 6 car, I think, than just maybe a botched restart. That car is in the sucker hole, and he is going backwards. And Brian, remember, was the first car outside of the 12th of the standings cut line, -2 to Tim Nofsker. And right now, Nofsker is running quite a ways ahead of the 6 car. Here comes the inside line. Kelly Causey, Ken Roberts. Kelly Causey is not in a must-win situation. He could point his way in, but a win would absolutely lock him into the postseason, as he was 19th coming into tonight. Is that some smoke lingering there off of turn 4?
Not so sure.
096 of Ulysses Sandoval being shown out of the race. I wonder if he might have maybe come down to the entrance of pit road and parked it or something. And that might have been the smoke I saw there off of turn 4. It looked like there were some skid marks coming onto pit lane. No caution, though. We stay
Third
green,
lane
and
mess.
look at that. Yeah, that third lane. Look who's leading it. Doug Hewlick in the 23. You talk about drivers with a long winless streak. Doug Hewlick, a number of seasons ago. Oh, big wreck! Big wreck there. And is that our big one? Is that our game changer here for the playoff scenario?
It wasn't really a big one.
Oh, Brian Rawson was in that. Cy Jones, both the Dixon brothers.
6 cars involved in this.
Denny
And
Carroll.
also 6 cars involved, and it also involved the number 6.
Greg Palmer in the 22, I believe, was the car that we saw disappear from our screens there.
We got 10 laps to go when we took this caution set. If there's anybody a lap down,
I don't think so.
Nope, everyone who was is out of the race, so
and
we
the
should
field
get
just swallowed up the pace car.
we should get a good restart here.
Joe DeSpirito leading them back. A little over a half dozen drivers involved in that one. The most notables collected up a couple of playoff hopefuls in Brian Rawson and Cy Jones. As we'll go back and take a look at what happened, bringing out our 5th yellow flag of the evening. It's middle of the pack, and it's going to start, I believe, with the 22 of Greg Palmer. They stack up on that outside line. Rawson into the back of Cy Jones. Oh, man, Palmer up onto his side. Tom Dixon actually... Oh, he almost was going to get through that, and then Brother Bob comes sliding down into his passenger side door. There's Denny Carroll in the 41. We'll take another look at it here and watch the stack up on the top. We'll actually go to the helicopter cam and watch the 7. 7's getting pushed into the back of the 84 by the 6, and then as that checkup takes place in the entry to the corner, that's the end result. Greg Lovell with a nice job avoiding. Same for Mike Mangialardi, but that hard impact there for the 22 of Greg Palmer, taking him out of this one. Greg was one of the drivers in the must-win situation here tonight, below 20th in the standings. And that will end his shot of advancing into the postseason with a chance at the championship. A couple of seasons ago, Greg Palmer ended up winning the season opener, locking himself into the playoffs, but it has been a bit of a struggle since that season. So as you alluded to, Michael, we're going to have plenty of laps here for an upcoming restart. Probably somewhere in the region of maybe 5, 6, 7 laps to go.
What I was thinking too.
We've had a number, as mentioned, of 1-lap shootouts and green-white checkers here this season.
Whatever lap we get a restart, I do kind of feel like it may or may not be the last restart we would get.
And I don't want to wish this upon the drivers, but I am going to, just for the appetite, whet the appetite of everybody watching. Last week, we had a wreck take place that involved the race leader, wiped out the entire field. Only 3 drivers were able to make their way through without any contact. They eventually ended up being the 3 podium finishers. We could be in for a thriller just like that.
Was I there for that,
tonight.
or was I there for that, or was that the day the hurricane was coming through for me?
That was when Milton was coming through.
Okay.
I believe everybody was on the lead lap at the time that caution came out, so we won't have the extra lap added on for lap down cars. We may get the lights out this time by, actually. Let's see. Nope, lights will
Nope,
stay
still
on.
on. Hey, we should take our last break before the
Before
ending
we
of this
do,
race.
give an update on the drivers out of the race at this point in time. We're going to have 35 drivers on the lead lap, all running. Denny Carroll, who was involved in that last incident, he's out of the race in 36th. Greg Palmer in 37th. Ulysses Sandoval in 38th. Jason Scheck in 39th. Both Sandoval and Palmer were in must-win situations here tonight, so obviously they will not advance into the playoffs, but a minimum of 12 drivers will. We may end up having more than that depending on circumstances. We still got a couple of restarts, maybe just one more restart left to go. We'll see how it all shakes out. We're going to take that final FRN race break and then be back here for the restart in tonight's regular season finale. Well, back in the day when you were going to have a shootout at the OK Corral, you would have brought a 6-shooter to the fight. We're not in the Wild West, but how about a 6-lap shootout to decide it here this evening at Burt Screwdriver's Raceway? Playoff implications. Drivers trying to win, point their way in. Drivers trying to preserve their spots in the top 12 in the standings. Joe DeSpirito below the cut line coming into this one. Multi-time champion. Looking for his first win on the season. Rodney Sullins just above the cut line, going to share the front row with him. And a lot of playoff hopefuls still in the running for this one. 35 drivers all on the lead lap. A lot can still happen at this point
Oh
in
yeah.
time here.
Oh yeah. Just keep an eye out. I don't want to put a commentator's curse, Seth, but I'm willing to make you pick a winner.
We ended up having 7 drivers involved in our 5th caution of the night, our most recent. That's the most drivers we've had involved so far. Is that the big one on the evening? Something tells me maybe not. Green flag back in the air here.
Uh-oh.
DeSpirito.
I saw somebody what looked like they were slowing down a lot, but it wasn't. They were just changing lanes.
Spirito gonna lead
Sorry.
them into turn 1. Causey going to follow into second. Oh, and there they go! Oh, the track's going to be completely blockaded up on the back straightaway.
You just happened to say something, didn't you?
I
And
did.
Seth, we might get a restart.
We might. I think you're right, because all drivers were on the lead lap. Usually our point of no returns around lap 62. This is lap 61, so we talked about those 1-2 lap shootouts. We're probably going to get another one here tonight. We're racing back to the caution. Causey going to step out onto Spirito. Hewlett's with him. They're not going to quite be able to get that 24 here. But there were a lot of drivers collected up back here, and now we start checking the list of drivers that were hoping to get into the playoffs. Brian Rawson in the 6, I know, was in that one again. Second incident he's been involved in. Question is, who else?
Told you we haven't seen the last of it.
Nope. And we may not have still. Let's go back, take a look at what happened here. It was in the middle of the pack. 40 of Javier Negron was one of the first ones I saw spun around. He's got a left rear quarter panel full of the Coca-Cola Chevrolet of Ron Hagelin. And he gets turned. John Godfrey in that. Mike Mangiolari, Jim Glout up on his side. I believe I saw Randy Waugh. Graham McDonald. There's Brian Rawson, left side of your screen. Keith Bynum, Mark Paglia, who had just gotten back on the lead lap a couple of cautions ago. Incredibly, I believe everybody drove away, including the mellow yellow machine of Jim Gloud. Let's take another look at it here from another angle. Watch the closing rate of the 111 to the 40. Off the door of Billy Elliser. Oh, that post is in a beautiful position there. Both the Dixon brothers able to make their way through.
I'm hearing reports that it could be a 1 or 2 lap shootout.
Certainly seems that way. Now we've talked about the 1 to 2 lap shootouts and where the advantage lies with the different shootouts we've had in the closing stages of races so far this season. Usually, 1 lap shootouts benefit the race leader because it takes a while for these cars to get up to full song. It takes a while for these cars to be able to generate runs. The leader can just hold the bottom, play defense, and only has to do it for 1 lap. If we end up having 2 laps or more for a final restart, that gives the advantage to the other drivers behind, usually drivers in rows 1, 2, maybe 3, depending on the circumstances. The Spirito is going to be hoping for a 1-lap dash. Everybody else behind is hoping for at least a green-white checkered. And take a look at some of the names we've got up here towards the front of this field. Spirito, we already mentioned, he could finish 2nd or 3rd and still point his way in, but he wants to win his way into the postseason. Kelly Causey, he could also point his way in, but Tim Nofsker's not that far behind him. So he could potentially right now be in a must-win situation to advance into the playoffs. Glenn Harris is the last driver mathematically who could point his way into the top 20 in the standings, but he has to win. And he's been up in the top 10 all night long. Started on the outside of the front row. He restarts in 3rd. And Doug Hewlett has done a great job of working his way up to the front. Got his first career win at this very racetrack a few seasons ago. He's got a shot at this race victory. Doug Hewlett cannot advance into the playoffs, but he could be one of those playoff spoilers here tonight, looking for career win number 2. No lucky dogs needed. All drivers were on the lead lap at the time of yellow. John Godfrey in the 7-Eleven we saw involved in that last wreck. He has taken his car to the garage, joining Denny Carroll, Greg Palmer, Ulysses Sandoval, and Jason Scheck. So that will leave us with 34 drivers left to settle it out.
Should be fun to watch.
Yeah, L called a shot too. He told Rodney to get behind the 8 car. Look where Rodney is right now, behind the 8 car.
Yeah.
So can 2 Dales beat a Jeff? If we get the lights out this next time by, it's going to be a 1-lap shootout. We've already passed the possibility for a green-white checkered. We would have had to have the lights out last time by. So it looks like it will be a 1-lap dash to decide this thing. Drivers need to know what their scenario is to be able to advance into the postseason. It's easy for a number of these drivers up here, like a Glenn Harris, like a Bobby Farrell. They know that they're in a must-win situation in order to advance into the playoffs. You've got other drivers just back there, like Ken Roberts, who's led the most laps so far tonight. He's trying to keep himself in the top 20 in the standings. Rodney Sullivan's up here in the top 5, trying to keep himself in the top 12 in points. Terry Bombard's back in 12th position. He's trying to do the same. I'm looking at a couple of drivers could be in trouble. Randy Waugh.
Luigi.
He's back in 28th. He's got to make up some ground here on this final shootout. I mean, looking at it right now, if Despirito wins, yes, he's locked in via a victory, but he would also move up into the top 12 in points, which could displace the 21. There you see it. Lights are out. We're getting ready to go back green. We'll give the usual disclaimer that we will stay at the front the entirety of this final lap and see who ends up being the first one back to the checkered flag. If trouble breaks out during the course of this final lap around Burt Screwdriver's Raceway, we will go back post-race after the victory celebration and look at all the necessary replays. So far this season, we have seen a number of former champions go to victory lane in Schilling, Seminara, and Josh Metallic. Joe Despirito wants to add his name to that list. He'd like to carry an extra 5 bonus points for a race victory into the postseason. It may come down here on this restart to who you have behind pushing you. Despirito has Glenn Harris. Kelly Causey has Doug Hewlick. What has the heart rate got to be for these drivers right now? I mean, it's bad enough if it's just a normal regular season race and you're getting ready for a 1-lap shootout. Obviously, you've got to be nervous, but this is the regular season finale. This is the final lap of the regular season. The playoffs begin next week.
Yeah, your heart rate's got to be skyrocketing here, so this is going to be fun to watch.
Should also bear in mind, too, during the course of the week, the RTG admins go over everything that happens during the course of the race, and if you end up causing an incident on this final 1-lap shootout, you might get hit with a post-race EOL penalty, and if a playoff driver's at fault, that could have implications towards who's battling for the championship. All right, here we go. 34 drivers still have a shot at this thing if last week is anything to go by. Joe Despirito, Kelly Causey, green flag in the air. Whoa, Ken Roberts spins the tires, might have gotten a bump from behind. Inside line's going to have a little bit of a loss of momentum because of that. Dead even through 1 and 2. Despirito trying to clear the 0-0. Caution's out. We're still racing back. Lot of shoving on that outside line. Here comes a third lane. Jeremy Jeffries, Causey clear to the point, not quite. Despirito back to the inside. Through 3 and 4, Despirito draws back even. Momentum will go to that middle groove. Oh, Causey gets spun! Oh, he saved it! He saved it! We're 3 wide, almost 4 through the tri-oval. Here DeSpirito, but a massive pileup through the tri-oval. We have to wait till the smoke and dust clears to figure out if that might have a playoff implication.
I want to know if anyone survived that. You talked about the big one.
Gracious.
We talked about the big one.
DeSpirito's gonna get the win. He points his way into the playoffs, but also will have the victory and the bonus points. Nofsker, who was the cut line driver coming into tonight, he's gonna get second, and I believe a career best Talladega Challenge finish. Third place for Glenn Harris. It'll be just short of winning his way into the postseason, but a great overall night for the driver of the 8 car. Scoring's got Causey in 4th, Hewlick in 5th, Elliser in 6th, Greg Lovell, Ron Hagelin, Bob Dixon, Mike Mangialardi, your top 10. But wow!
That was absolutely crazy.
This season's been nuts with late race dramatics. Go all the way back to the season opener when Brian Schilling on fumes picked up the first checkered flag of the season. This is at least our third finish with a 2 or 1 lap shootout to the conclusion. And our second straight race, we're on the final lap, a massive, massive wreck coming to the checkers.
Watch out, pace car.
Pace car be like, can I just play on through? Well, Joe DeSpirito finally back in victory lane, taking the checkered flag here tonight after leading 18 laps. Held off Kelly Causey, who I'm still shocked was able to save that car off of turn 4. He got a little assist from the 24 of Joe DeSpirito to get him back going, and still managed to finish inside of the top 5 in 4th place. But interval...
I'm gonna allow you to take over questions from now, Seth.
Okay, interval at the line between the top 3 was 64 one-thousandths of a second, 2 thousandths between second and third. We'll take a look at the finishing results in just a moment. We finished this race under caution. Something happened, I believe, over in turns 1 and 2. To end this race under yellow, and then we'll take a look at the massive pileup that took place coming through the tri-oval to the start-finish line. This was at the rear of the field. Brian Rawson in the 6, trying to point his way into the postseason, up the track into Jim Glaude. The two of them get together. Rawson up and on his roof, and that brought out the yellow flag. From that point on, drivers already knew it was going to be racing back to the checkers. And when we got off of turn number 4, watch this by Kelly Causey, who gets a shove from Doug Hewlick, and right there, that car was wrecked, and he was able to keep it going. Then Rodney Sullins up into Bob Seminara, led to the massive pileup coming back to the stripe. Bobby Farrell up and over. Richard Martin, Ken Roberts, who led the most laps tonight, involved. The track completely littered with race cars from the outside wall to the inside wall. And it all came down to maybe a little bit of luck and momentum as to who was going to slide across the finish line in what position. Take a look at it again through the tri-oval. Watch the 38 on the inside into the 712, who clips the 17 and is just on from there. Massive hits. Drivers all realizing that they got to keep their foot in the throttle to get to the stripe. And I'm taking a look at our running order right here, which we'll show you in a moment. And there are a lot of question marks as to drivers potentially advancing and drivers potentially being eliminated after everything that just went down. Here's a look at it. Joe DeSpirito with the win. Tim Nofsker second. Glenn Harris, Kelly Causey, Doug Hewlick, the top 5. We gave you the top 10 with Elliser, Lovell, Hagelin, Dixon, and Mangialardi, your top 10. I do not believe outside of Joe DeSpirito, any of these other drivers up here in the top 10 would make any type of a play for advancing into the playoffs. Keith Bynum will be 11th, Doug Woolley in 12th, Javier Negron, Cy Jones, Bobby Farrell, your top 15. Now, Cy Jones, he was 7 points below the cut line. He is going to finish, it looks like 5 positions. No, correction. He's going to finish 8 positions ahead of Rodney Sullins. Those two were separated by 11 points. But remember, Sullins had that contact with Bob Seminara, so we don't know if the 38 gets tagged for that. If he gets a post-race EOL, does he drop out and does Cy Jones move in? We know DeSpirito's moving in, but I believe the driver he would end up displacing could be one of two drivers. As we look down here towards the bottom of the finishing results, Randy was going to finish in 19th, but look where Terry Bombard crossed the line in 29th. And Terry was only 5 points to the good above the 12th in the standings cut line. So Terry may fall below 12th in standings. And the question is, does Espirito replace him? Does Randy Wass stay in? I don't know. We have to wait till all the calculations are done. And Ken Roberts, he led the most laps here tonight. So he's got that bonus point. He's got the bonus point for leading a lap as well. But he crossed the line in 25th. And take a look at some of the drivers that were behind him in the point standings and where they finished. Bob Dixon was only 5 points behind him, and he finishes 9th. Billy Elliser was a total of 8 points behind him, and he finishes in 6th. Greg Lovell, he was a total of 24 points behind him, and he finishes in 7th. Did Ken Roberts, after getting the pole position and leading the most laps, a former winner of the season, did he drop out of the top 20 in points? Again, we have to wait and see how it all shakes out. We know that he'll pass two drivers in the standings, Grant Wesley and Brian Lovell, so that may help his cause. But of course, we just have to wait and see once everything is calculated. And of course, as well, nothing is official until next week after the RTG admins have a chance to be able to do their post-race review. But we do know that Joe DeSpirito, he's going playoff racing. He is going to battle for yet another championship here in the Talladega Challenge Series, and it's time to dial up our podium finishers on the night. Let's see if we can dial up a driver that kind of the agony and the ecstasy here tonight. The agony of not being able to get that win to advance in the playoffs, but a solid evening overall for the driver of number 8. Let's see if we can dial up Glenn Harris.
User was moved
Hey,
to
Glenn,
your
it's Michael and
channel.
Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
10-4, guys. How you doing?
I'll tell you what, we were talking about, we've been treated to some really amazing late race theatrics here down this home stretch of the regular season. We knew coming into tonight, whole bunch of drivers, entirely different scenarios to advance into the playoffs. Knowing it's a one-lap shootout, heart rate had to be through the roof. You were one of the drivers that still had a shot mathematically, but was in a must-win situation. What was going through your mind there in preparation for that one-lap dash up there in the conversation to be able to take this checker?
Yeah, well, that was pretty exciting, Seth. I hope it was good on TV for you guys. But, just wanted to make sure I got a good launch on that one to go. We just had that one-lap shootout. So, the launch was key and try to stay tucked up under Joe and give him as much push as I could. And it worked out pretty well. It got a little sketchy coming off turn 4 there. I was in car, so I couldn't really see all that was going on, but we survived and come home third.
Definitely sketchy off of turn 4. Thought that might be where the big one occurred. It didn't happen until we got further down to the tri-oval. Tonight you started on the outside of the front row, the random qualifying draw helping you out there with good starting track position, but you maintained it all night long. A very well put together race for this number 8 car. I mean, you had a shot here tonight to win your way into the playoffs. This is obviously a trend in the right direction. How important is this for you in preparation, maybe even for next season, to try and make your way into a playoff spot?
Well, it's a good launch point. Just trying to race clean, learn from the guys that have the better experience, and stay in the draft to keep it up front.
Talk about that final one lap shootout and the fact that you were the car on the inside line. At that point, are you just committed to pushing the 24, hoping that the line clears so that way you can make a move? Or at that point in time, did you think that there might be some kind of a scenario where you could be able to maybe take it 3 wide up the middle, be able to get the checkered flag?
Well, I knew it was going to be tight. Coming off of two, maybe even a third line forming out there. So I had decided I was going to stay on the bottom line, and at least until we got back to the tri-oval to see what happened.
Great run for you here tonight. Glenn started second, bring it home on the podium in third place this evening. Congratulations on the job well done. Before we let you go, floor is yours for thank you sponsors and shout outs.
Um, well, I'm glad I got a chance to run that Black Goodrich Chevy tonight. I think it brought me a little luck. We'll see how that goes on future races. Definitely want to thank Seth, you and Michael for the great work you do on the broadcasting here at Flatout Racing. And also a shout out to all the RTG owners, staff, and admins for giving us a great place to race.
Glenn Harris, he puts that legendary number 8 P3 here tonight after a fireworks storm occurs behind him through the tri-oval coming around to the checkers at Burt Scott Evers Raceway. Congratulations on the great run here, Glenn. Hopefully we get to talk to you a lot more here down the home stretch of this now playoffs portion of the season.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Glenn Harris
User
in
was moved out of
P3.
your
Let's see if
channel.
we dial up the driver that finishes in second place tonight. See if we can get a hold of Tim Nofsker.
User was moved
Hey,
to
Tim,
your
Michael, and
channel.
Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Yes, I got you.
I'll tell you what, it doesn't matter if it's super speedway racing, it seems like when a driver is put in a high-pressure situation, that's when they really perform. Here this evening, second place, but you came in the cut line driver. Now, I talked about the fact that I've talked with a bunch of you drivers when you're in playoff scenarios, and I ask, are you aware of the situation? Do you know who you're racing? Being the cut line driver, knowing that there's about 2 or 3 drivers ahead of you that are trying to point their way in, about a half dozen drivers behind you trying to point their way in. Did you know what your scenario was here tonight, or were you just laser focused of if I keep my car up front all night, then I'm going to obviously advance my way in?
Oh, I actually wasn't up front for 90% of that race. I decided that it was go time with about 20 to go, and I kept trying to work my way up into the top 10. Finally got there. I kind of knew where I was at in points, but I figure if I can get up front, then that'll take care of itself. And I didn't get there, but yeah, I did all right, good enough to advance. I haven't had the season I was hoping for sure, but yeah, I appreciate Chuck. Chuck was pushing me real good there at the end, almost scary good, because I was getting loose going down the back stretch and wobbling around, but he's the best pusher out there, so I wouldn't want anybody behind me. It's a shame he got wrapped up in that last bit there at the end, because I think I would have had a good shot at winning this.
Yeah, let's talk about that off of turn 4, because I just went back and looked at it. You have the 23 hit the wall in front of you. The 00 nearly wrecks in front of the entire field and somehow saves it. You shoot up the middle in the third lane, 4 wide scenario. There was a point there as well. You had that momentum with that push from Chuck. I thought you might be able to get the 24 at the line. I mean, was it just the fact that maybe the run stalled out a little bit there? What happened? Because it looked like through the tri-oval you had the faster car.
It did. It leveled off. The 24 was getting a good push from the 8, and I had a good momentum with everybody kind of checked up there when the 00 had his issues, and then with the 23, I just was able to weave my way through there. But with Chuck falling off in that wreck, I kind of leveled off there. So I'm happy with second.
So with the second place finish, you obviously advance into the playoffs. You mentioned about not really the regular season that you were looking forward to, but nonetheless, now clean slate, You're in the hunt for the championship. Do you put all that in the rearview mirror, look ahead here towards the playoffs, and with the run you had here tonight, bringing it home P2 at a track that's going to have such a bearing on this championship with the elimination races and, of course, the season finale as well, what does that do as far as your outlook in these upcoming playoffs?
Well, I usually do pretty well at BSR. They do race slightly different. But, it really is just so dependent on the guys that are around you. Do you trust them? Are they good pushers? Do they lead a good line? I mean, you really have to focus on who you work well with and who, there's a lot of guys I would trust to push me to the end, and then there's others that will hang you in a heartbeat. So you have to just know those guys and know, I help those that help me. So it should be a pretty good playoffs.
Well, Tim, congratulations on the great run here tonight. Exactly what you needed, being on that 12th in the standings cut line coming into tonight. We'll be seeing you run for a championship starting next week at Talladega. We'll let you get back here to your celebration of advancing into the postseason. But before we do, floor is yours for thank you, sponsors, and shoutouts.
Yeah, I'd like to give a shout out to my racing buds, Chuck and Mark and Brian. They always got my back, and it's nice to know that you can have trust amongst other racers. And give a shout out to Bones Prime and the rest of the boys that keep the RTG family together. And give a shout out to you guys for always coming through with a fantastic broadcast. And give a shout out to Josh. We're still missing Wiley, obviously. That's on my mind every night when I log in and every night when I leave. But Josh kind of keeps me centered, so I appreciate him and his wisdom that he gives me throughout the evening. And that should be it.
Well, Tim Nofsker, second place here tonight in the regular season finale, and his road on the playoffs begins right here, right now. He'll look to begin that journey next week at Talladega. Congratulations, the great run here tonight, Tim, surviving that mayhem on the final lap, and best of luck here in the postseason.
All right, thank you very much.
Let's see if we now go
User
down to
was moved
victory
out of your
lane,
channel.
dial up tonight's race winner, 7th winner on the season. Let's get a hold of Joe DeSpirito.
User was moved to
Hey,
your
Joe, Michael and
channel.
Seth up here in the FRM booth. You got us?
Hey guys, I got you. How you doing?
Well, I'll tell you what. We're gonna talk about your race victory, but I followed up this one-lap shootout here tonight to everybody watching at home about the fact that last week we ended up having a massive wreck on the final lap, and even the leader got taken out. Off turn 4, you're battling with Causey, and next thing you know, he's into your passenger side door. I mean, were you having some flashbacks from last week and thinking, "Oh no, not again, not the leader"?
Yeah, that was pretty scary there. I was, talking to my guys during the caution lap saying if I just go around the bottom, I should be okay for at least a top 5. Knock on wood, as long as somebody doesn't wreck me. And then, everything stopped right there in my brain and I'm like, "Oh god, I jinxed myself." And my car stayed straight and it worked out.
So interesting you bring that up because, we were talking about the fact that, you didn't have to win tonight. Obviously, the 5 bonus points helps out a lot when you end up getting the race victory towards the playoffs, but you also were only 5 points below the cut line. So tonight, at least on this one lap shootout, you were looking more defensive to make sure you at least pointed your way in if the win scenario was not there.
Yep. Yeah, I was just trying to get top 5. Win's nice, get some bonus points, but uh I think Donnie wasn't racing tonight, so that bounced him out of the top 12. And I think it was just going against Brian Rawson to make it into the top 12. And he was 2 points ahead of me, and he wasn't up there at the end. So I was just trying to get a top 5. And yeah, it worked out. I'll take the win.
See, whenever I think I have you drivers figured out, you always are thinking of something else. I can never jump into the helmet, it seems, of a driver, especially when you guys are in these type of scenarios. But speaking of scenarios, You're a multi-time champion of this series. You're heading back to the postseason with a chance at yet another championship. The victory here tonight, let's talk about this particular racetrack because it's going to have a high significance on this playoffs. Of course, it's going to be where our 2 elimination races take place, and ultimately in 6 weeks' time, it's where the championship is going to be decided. So, in that kind of a mindset, how important is it tonight to kind of set the tone heading into the postseason, being the last driver to take a checkered flag at this racetrack?
Yeah, I mean, it's good to get practice here at BSR. I keep saying it. It's a racy track. You have opportunities to make up track position. Middle lane, bottom lane, third lane, whatever's moving. You find the right lane. You can make up some spots. Compared to Tally, where it kind of gets a little single file for a while. But yeah, it's good to get some good results here and just feel comfortable with the track heading into the cutoff races in the final.
As we were heading down this home stretch, I asked a number of drivers, can you start to feel a sense of desperation, feel the aggressive level ramping up? They said, absolutely, we can feel that. We knew with that kind of information coming into tonight, all the different scenarios, some drivers in must win, some drivers trying to point in, some drivers trying to get in the top 20 in points, all sorts of different scenarios across the board. We knew it was going to be hectic as this race wound down. Now, as we have this reset towards the playoffs, do you think we start to see the aggressive level toned down just a little bit, especially amongst the playoff drivers, knowing that there's a lot more to lose at this point in time? Or do you think we continue to see this as a constant where you and the other playoff drivers are going to have to keep your head on a swivel and make sure that you don't end up, especially here in this upcoming first round, start off on the wrong foot at Dega?
Yeah, usually the first race or two in the first round. The chase drivers kind of are just being conservative, just trying to make it into the next round, and things start to ramp up after that. So we'll see how it goes, but it starts off a little slow normally, and then it ramps up through those 5, 6 races, and it gets hectic toward the end. So we'll see. You don't want to ruin your playoffs in the first race, so that's what people are thinking about the entire time. So they just want to have a nice top 10, top 5 finish and move on, and then people will start racing for wins and so on and so forth.
Well, Joe, congratulations on getting the victory here tonight, winning your way into the postseason and garnering those extra bonus points to boot. Before we let you get back to your celebrating here, though, floor is yours for Victory Lane. Thank you, sponsors, and shoutouts.
Thanks, guys. Yeah, I'm happy to get the win after the hurricane. Milton lost power there, so glad to be back. I want to thank RTG. I want to thank you guys at FRN. I want to thank Jason Check, 260 Motorsports, Race LM for sponsoring the season. I want to thank my team at Mobs Motors, my sponsors, Old City Fly Shop, and I want to thank my family for watching, my work buddies, LC and Dan. And yeah, thank you for everybody watching on YouTube. Appreciate it, guys. Have a good one.
Well, with the victory here tonight, Burt Screwdrivers Raceway, Joe DeSpirito's got some great momentum heading into the playoffs next week at Talladega. Best of luck on that, Joe. Go enjoy this victory.
Thanks, guys. Good night.
User was moved out of your channel.
And of course, as well, tremendous credit, tremendous thank you to Jeremy Jeffries, who works tirelessly on making sure that we end up having the point stands for you every week. Prior to the race, obviously, nothing would be official at this point in time because of all the post-race review that would have to take place during the course of this week. But we can obviously tell you drivers that we are pretty certain are going to be locked in via victory. Brian Schilling, Bob Seminara, Josh Metallic, Donnie Garrett, Mark Paglia, and now Joe DeSpirito, I would assume, would all be locked in. We would have to wait and see how many positions Donnie Garrett ends up losing. We know that obviously he took a provisional here tonight. Also, big question mark on Ken Roberts. 25th place crossing the line here tonight. He was the 20th place driver in the point standings. Was he able to stay above that cut line? We're going to have to wait and see. We know that obviously with the good run here tonight, it certainly is looking like Tim Knopfsker is going to be advancing. One would assume that maybe, just maybe, Rodney Sullins would end up advancing as well. Jury's out on Randy Waugh. Jury's out on Terry Bombard.
Luigi.
We don't know for certain on them. We know that some drivers are already locked in on points coming tonight. Jeremy Jeffries, Chuck McClure, Jessica Shelton. So there are a lot of maybes right now for us to be able to try and put together what the playoff grid is going to look like. But I think it's safe to say that we could have as many as 13 drivers competing for this championship. But that is completely unofficial, and that is just based off of rough math. We'll have to wait until we get the official word, which you will get the same time we do next Thursday night when the playoffs begin at Talladega Super Speedway. But Michael, this home stretch of the regular season has been wild. I mean, we ended up having, I believe this is our third shootout of 2 laps or less so far this season.
Yeah.
Last week, we talked with Tim Knopfsker, who finished second tonight. He was the leader, dominated last week's race, and got wrecked from the lead on the final lap in that massive big one at Dega. Fast forward here to this week, we nearly had the wreck take place at the front again with the contact between Causey and Despirito. They fortunately were able to save it, but about 5th place on back, we're not so lucky. Another massive pile-up coming to the start-finish line. These races have absolutely shaken up what our playoff scenario is going to look like heading into next week.
Yeah, it's going to be, it's always crazy with these shootouts and everything, except it makes things more exciting. But one lap makes it more exciting because you really don't have a lot of time to make any type of moves. So it's very interesting, and I can't wait to see how these playoffs are going to shape up.
And of course, as well, the playoffs, for those that aren't familiar, 2 races per round, 3 rounds. Eliminations take place at race number 2, race number 4, here at this racetrack that we were just at, and then 2 races, the combination of both culminating into the final round. I mean, Michael, I'm going to be asking you this obviously next week, but I just want to get a preliminary thought from you. If you're a playoff driver, do you look at next week maybe as a must-win scenario? Because we've seen so many times playoff drivers be able to get that first victory of the first round and then not necessarily put their feet up, but man, they are able to be a lot more relaxed during the elimination race. If you're any one of these drivers that eventually are going to be named a playoff contender in the hunt for that championship, are you basically treating it as a brand new season, a season opener, and you're looking for the checkered flag?
Yes, absolutely. Short, sweet, to the point.
All right. Well, we've heard drivers say they look at that. We've heard drivers say they just want to get the good points. So, again, I obviously got probably a DD minus in driver mentality tonight and trying to read the mind of one Joe DeSpirito. So, the drivers may end up surprising us next week. But thank you, everybody, for tuning into our coverage here tonight for the regular season finale for the 63rd season of the Rolling Thunder Gaming Talladega Challenge Series. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And we cannot wait to bring you the playoffs next week at 7 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't show up at 7. You'll be waiting a long time. 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time next Thursday night. Please let my internet be decent. But Michael, again, thank you for joining me up here in the booth. Appreciate you helping me cover this one and cannot wait for these playoffs to begin.
Absolutely. Same here, man. I can't wait to see it.
We hope to see all of you next Thursday night. The playoffs have begun here in the RTG Tally Challenge. Congratulations to Joe DeSpirito on the victory and all the drivers that have advanced into the postseason. For Michael Norman, I'm Seth Cole. You've been watching another broadcast courtesy of FRN, the Flatout Racing Network.
This broadcast is the copyrighted work of Flatout Racing Network and may not be rebroadcast, retranslated, or used in any form without the express written consent of Flatout Racing Network and iRacing.com Motorsports Simulations. Flatout Racing Network would like to thank you for your support, and we hope you enjoyed tonight's broadcast.